Is that the only reason why? Less than a month he had the championship. He drops the championship, wins it back on the 22nd of November, and relinquishes the title on December 13th, just before Christmas. I thought until at least the Royal Rumble, Sheamus would have been champion, and that's how long a lot of people are predicting, ironically enough, that Roman Reigns will be champion. A lot of people believe he's going to pull a Mick Foley. When Mick Foley lost the title about 26 or 28 days after winning it from The Rock initially, on an edition of Monday Night Raw, very unfortunate things playing out for Mick Foley when he won his championship for the first time ever, and was actually one of the more celebrated champions of the Attitude Era. And a lot of people believe that Roman Reigns is going to go the same route Mick Foley did a number of years ago and pull a Mick Foley of holding the title 26 through 28 days. That's another unique scenario people are thinking about and talking about throughout social media. But right now, the obvious suggestion I could throw your way, if Roman Reigns' reign lasts until the WrestleMania pay-per-view this year, it's going to be Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, with Brock Lesnar probably coming out on top, because who else could you have go up against Roman Reigns, and who else has more momentum right now off a victory of The Undertaker and ending the rivalry, which stood for over 10 years in professional wrestling? You can't go wrong by throwing Brock Lesnar in the main event of WrestleMania, although it may seem like history would be repeating itself with Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar 2. This is a rematch that's been building and being hyped up for a significant period of time, and if there ever was a time to put it off, given the number of wrestlers we've seen on the DL with back and shoulder and knee injuries, from Randy Orton to Seth Rollins to Sting with neck injury at Night of Champions last year, then obviously the only direction you could turn your head towards, would be Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, even though it would feel like history would be repeating itself. And with how WWE's really developed a tendency over the years of having history repeat itself more often than fans probably would like to admit, for having seen history repeat itself, this is a match that needs to happen. We need to get to a point of finality when it comes to Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, and if there's going to be a Shield reunion sometime in 2016, it has to happen after WrestleMania, and everything is finishing up with scenarios like Dean Ambrose being Intercontinental Champion, which, by the way, I'm really proud of Dean Ambrose for finally accomplishing after chasing the championship for over a year, ever since last year WrestleMania. Of course, he chased the championship. He wanted to get his name on the wall at WWE headquarters, and obviously he accomplished that with a victory over Kevin Owens at the recent TLC pay-per-view, with two of the main Shield members, Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns, coming away with the championships. That was the highlight, of course, of the TLC pay-per-view, because WWE really had nothing left. And that's the unfortunate thing when you talk about Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns. They really had nothing left in the way of creative juices or creative energy. They had all these wrestlers on the DL. I just mentioned Randy Orton, Seth Rollins, Sting, of course, neck, back, and knee injuries, some of the more severe injuries, which unfortunately sidelined you for a number of months. So unfortunately, because they had nothing left creatively, the only thing they could resort to is giving the IC title to Dean Ambrose and the WWE Championship to Roman Reigns. It is nothing short of uncreative. But the thing is, that's all they had left, and obviously that was the highlight of TLC, and that's what's gotten everybody talking on social media. Who's Roman Reigns going to face at WrestleMania if he lasts as champion until WrestleMania, which a lot of people don't think he's going to do. But I'm going to choose to give Roman Reigns the benefit of the doubt, because he's going to thrive off this controversy. He'll continue to thrive off that controversy until the controversy and the novelty of it wears out, because the controversy is usually what a champion thrives off of, especially when you're talking about champions like Mick Foley, champions like Shawn Michaels. They have always thrived off of controversy. The 1997 Screwjob, of course, we saw The Rock win the championship at the Survivor Series in 1998. They've always thrived off controversy, and the controversy has allowed them to last and remain on top of WWE. And I see Roman Reigns' reign as champion, his initial reign, playing off of and thriving off this controversy until the novelty of it all wears off. We've seen so many controversial champions like Shawn Michaels, of course, thrive off the controversial conclusions of matches like we've seen at the 97 Survivor Series, the 98 Survivor Series. Was another one. Mick Foley winning the title the way he did after squandering a championship match with The Rock at the last minute, making The Rock tap out and pin The Rock, of course, to win the championship and lose it 26 days later. And they have all went on to thrive and make names for themselves off of controversy, and Roman Reigns is just the latest individual to thrive off controversy. But who he has to face in the future, that's going to be the biggest challenge for Roman Reigns to overcome, and especially with this being his second WrestleMania main event, that will prove to be a true testament to Roman Reigns' legacy in professional wrestling, and if he'll be able to further cement his legacy with a victory, possibly at WrestleMania, which he didn't garner last year, because that victory unfortunately went to neither Brock Lesnar or Roman Reigns with Seth Rollins. And now with Seth Rollins out for a significant period of time until at least the summer of 2016, we can get this match between Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar off, which is why I'm really a big fan of seeing how this will all play out over the next 3 to 4 months. I believe WrestleMania is in April this year, so they have an extra month to build up for hype. For Lesnar and Roman Reigns, that would be awesome to get that extra month of hype in there and anticipation and unpredictability to an all-time high for Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. And I'm hoping they'll do things that they didn't do last year between Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. We saw the contract signing last year, of course, the face-to-face altercations between Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, how Reigns built momentum week after week off winning the Royal Rumble, and then out of nowhere they throw a swerve in there with Seth Rollins coming in after losing to Randy Orton earlier that night at WrestleMania and cashing in the way he did. To be honest with you, was really frustrated about this because I think the WrestleMania main event should have been left up to Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar to cap off a phenomenal WrestleMania after Sting and Triple H gave us a phenomenal match regardless of how I feel about the outcome of that match. WrestleMania 31 could have been capped off in a big way with Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar giving us one hell of a match, and then Seth Rollins comes out and ruins it all for wrestling fans who are thinking that Brock Lesnar, either that or Roman Reigns, we're going to win. So hopefully we'll get to a point of finality and get the conclusion that we were supposed to have seen last year at WrestleMania, rather than what happened with Seth Rollins coming out and cashing in the briefcase the way he did when we least expected him to do it, becoming the first ever Money in the Bank briefcase recipient to do that at WrestleMania, do the like of it, which I've never seen done before. After Sting and Triple H gave us a phenomenal match, and we all know how I feel about Sting and Triple H's conclusion in the aftermath and fallout of last year's WrestleMania. So hopefully this year's WrestleMania will get us to a point that we were hoping to last year at WrestleMania, but unfortunately never got to because of how the circumstances played out and were portrayed this year at WrestleMania. But this controversial conclusion at TLC, how do you feel about it? Hashtag it to me on Twitter at Jonathan Clarke1, along with Dean Ambrose coming out victorious over Kevin Owens to win the Intercontinental Championship, with Kevin Owens, of course, hell-bent on regaining the championship, and Dolph Ziggler now thrown in there as a third individual, possibly setting up for a triple threat by WrestleMania or the Royal Rumble. That would be interesting to see how Dolph Ziggler kind of fits in to the program with everything going on with Dean Ambrose and Kevin Owens. That would be very interesting too. A lot of interesting conclusions and fallouts from Survivors or from TLC to talk about, especially the Divas Championship scenario with how Charlotte retained her championship with assistance from her father, Ric Flair. I can tell you I'm really a big fan of that because I think Ric Flair should have stayed out of it and kept his business to himself and let Charlotte and Paige finish up the rivalry the way that it was meant to be. So there's a lot of points to get to in terms of finality when you talk about the fallout of the TLC pay-per-view. Can't tell you I was really pleased with that pay-per-view. It wasn't the best pay-per-view I've seen they've ever done in the month of December. Usually the month of December is a lackluster pay-per-view because everything like Christmas and New Year's falling back-to-back simultaneously and them having to get off the pay-per-view every year in December early on in the month. For around the 10th or the 13th of the month is usually when they drop the pay-per-view. Either the pay-per-views of the past you're talking about or recent pay-per-views like TLC. TLC really doesn't offer us much, but the thing about Roman Reigns becoming champion is at least a little bit different and something that a lot of people didn't expect. And because of what happened at TLC, a lot of people are expecting a big challenge awaiting Roman Reigns at WrestleMania if in fact he gets to that point. And I think the challenge that awaits him is Brock Lesnar because of their history. And obviously right now there's no one else big enough you can put in the WrestleMania main event because of so many wrestlers on the DL and then not expected to return prior to WrestleMania. And that's truly the unfortunate thing for fans of people like Randy Orton, Seth Rollins, and Sting. They're not expected to return anytime soon before WrestleMania. The only one who is expected to return for WrestleMania and get in on the WrestleMania 32 card would be John Cena as an obvious challenger for Alberto Del Rio's United States Championship, because that's who Alberto Del Rio, of course, defeated to win the United States Championship off his return. And because we haven't seen John Cena since losing at Hell in a Cell last October, again, getting back to the point where we need to get to a point of finality with a lot of feuds from last October. The Undertaker and Brock Lesnar finished up their rivalry, which stood for over 10 years, and John Cena and Alberto Del Rio still have to get to that point of finality before WrestleMania 32, and we may not see it until WrestleMania 32, with the most likely individual to return out of everybody featured on the DL or having been given time off being John Cena, because there's nothing wrong with John Cena medically. He's been cleared to wrestle, and he will be at WrestleMania before we ever see someone like Randy Orton or Sting get in on the WrestleMania 32 card. Now, it's been known that wrestlers do make surprise appearances when you least expect them, or returns when you least expect them to happen, so it wouldn't surprise me none if someone like Randy Orton did return to headline WrestleMania this year, but it's highly unlikely with the knee and shoulder and back and neck injuries that all these wrestlers have received, and it's highly unlikely that we're going to see them before WrestleMania. So Brock Lesnar and John Cena pretty much are your guarantees for main events of WrestleMania as your headliners this year, and it wouldn't surprise me none if it was Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar as somewhat of an early prediction. I can throw your way with Paul Heyman, obviously, of course, playing the wild card in favor of either Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar. Something else interesting that's been discussed, too, is the fact that Roman Reigns could pull a heel turn either by aligning himself with the Authority or aligning himself with Paul Heyman as his agent, with Paul Heyman turning on Brock Lesnar. With a fan favorite of Brock Lesnar, of course, becoming more obvious in recent months and weeks on WWE, and with how Brock Lesnar is continuously rallying support of wrestling fans, seeing a heel turn from Roman Reigns to get heel heat, to get more attention because he obviously can't garner it with Royal Rumble wins and previous WrestleMania main events under his belt, under his hat. I think a heel turn of either Roman Reigns or Dean Ambrose could obviously happen before WrestleMania or in the fallout of WrestleMania this year, with obviously Paul Heyman aligning himself with Roman Reigns. That would be an interesting twist in the storylines because a lot of people wouldn't see this coming, even though people are making predictions of a heel turn by either Roman Reigns or Dean Ambrose on sites like ProWrestling.com. It would be a surprise for all of us to see Roman Reigns turn heel on someone like Brock Lesnar, with Brock Lesnar playing the fan favorite card, and the scenario being reversed. Roman Reigns playing the fan favorite, and Brock Lesnar playing the heel, to Brock Lesnar playing the fan favorite, and Roman Reigns playing the heel. That would be really interesting, and that would be an exemplification of one of my favorite things about professional wrestling, wrestling psychology, because that's what it all comes down to. How much psychology a character has with him and how much momentum he can build with that psychology. So that would be really interesting to see, a unique swerve of how Roman Reigns could play the heel card either in the fall of WrestleMania or in the WrestleMania main event by aligning himself with Paul Heyman with a heel turn. Of course, Brock Lesnar being betrayed by Paul Heyman, revealing that Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns are on the same page a couple of weeks prior to WrestleMania, and setting up for a fan favorite scenario, Brock Lesnar going up against the heel Roman Reigns. Just thought I'd throw that scenario and play that card for you in the last few minutes of this show. Now, I have to take a few minutes before I finish up the show this week. This is my last show before I head out for the holiday season, so I want to wish everybody a happy holiday season of 2015. I will see you